Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Philip Richland,
And I'm Jordan Harris, your co-host, and
and this
this is
is
the
the DTT
DTT
or
or
Dissecting
Dissecting the
the
Truth
Truth
podcast.
podcast. So, I'm very excited to bring to you guys the first ever DTT podcast. We're going to have a great time on this show. We're going to get into a lot of serious topics, a lot of fun topics. We're going to break everything down. And at the end of the day, we're going to be dissecting the truth. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to do a little introduction, tell you a little bit about ourselves so that you can understand more about our perspective, where we're coming from when we answer a lot of these questions, because a lot of the issues in the world, it's not really about black and white. It's all about the gray. It's all about the nuance. And where the nuance comes in is people's perspectives and how that relates to the issues at hand. So that's the spiel. We're going to start off. Obviously, I'm Philip Richland, and my unique perspective going into this podcast, I would say probably the facts that I'm such a devout Christian at my age. I feel like that gives me a more unique perspective because a lot of times when you have people that are more serious Christians are normally older. Obviously, there are plenty of, young Christians that are even more serious than I am, but I haven't seen any podcasts from them, especially on civil rights issues. And on top of that, I'm also a JMC student, which doesn't mean a lot to people hearing that, but James Madison is actually the hardest program in Michigan. You can look it up, check it out. That's true. But basically, all that means is critical analysis skills have been fine tuned and adjusted for the past 4 or 5 years. So that gives me a unique perspective when looking at these issues. I'm able to break it down in a specific way, but at the same time, have a Christian perspective on top of that. What about you, Jordan? Where do you get your unique perspective
Just
from?
explaining it to the people a little more. So JMC, what does that like equate to in terms of like degree? Like where are you trying to head with that?
It's a Bachelor of Arts, obviously. What I want to do with it is go to law school. I want to be a lawyer, and critical analysis is probably one of the most important things you can have to being a lawyer. So when it comes to that, I think I'm already quite ahead, even though I'm a year behind.
For me, like I said, I'm your co-host, Jordan Harris. I think my unique perspective from a lot of this definitely probably comes from my psychology background. While not necessarily professional, have graduated with a psychology degree. I'm a current doctoral student in counseling psychology. So I think a lot of different issues coming at it from the perspective of thinking about the mind, as well as just like, still being a normal person, still like living the day-to-day life. I am also a growing Christian, not as devout as our host Philip is. But I say that's the main thing, really looking at things from how the mind and how like just overall humans can play a role into decision making, the different things that exist in the world. So being able to analyze it, not just kind of surface level, but kind of being able also to dive deeper into why a person may do what they do.
And just to add on to that, I think the beauty in us being the people that are doing this is from my training from school, I look at things from a more logical perspective, and Jordan with psychology has a more emotional background. So when you pair those two things together, you can really get really rich and nuanced conversations, which is exactly what we're looking for on Dissecting the Truth podcast. So moving on, let's talk about our hobbies. Jordan, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of school and work, of course?
Outside of school and work, that is a lot of what I do. But honestly, sports. Sports has been the biggest thing for me. I did football for a long time. So answering that off the rip, just in case you see my size, I did do football, no longer a football player. Please don't say anything about it. But nowadays it's working out, lifting weights when I can, and then a lot of basketball. Enjoy basketball a lot, playing the video game, different games. Used to be sports games a lot, but now it's more like Rocket Leagues of the world, Dead by Daylight. So yeah, I just enjoy my free time. I use it doing sports or playing games, honestly. How about you, Phil?
For me, a lot of it is almost too similar. But instead of being a football player, I was a track athlete. But my favorite sport is basketball. If I could live a life where I wake up and play basketball every day, that would be a very fulfilling and enjoyable life to me. Like, if you just got rid of any injuries, got rid of any responsibilities, I could go and play basketball all day, every day, and probably never get bored. But Outside of that, especially, when I rack up injuries and can't play basketball, I'll probably normally play video games. And if I'm not doing that, I'm doing some random projects that I came up with and devoted way too much time to, which is ironically kind of what we're doing right now. So for me, it's really just video games, basketball, podcasting now. And then also, I would say religion is also kind of one of my hobbies because I really do enjoy talking about theological discussions. My favorite thing to do is at our Sunday Bible school, the first Sunday of the month, we'll have like a section where we can just ask questions and you can ask anyone there. I fill up that entire time asking questions about the Bible and theological questions and like that. So I really do enjoy it. Moving forward, I guess that's a perfect segue because the next thing is religion. So if you just want to talk about your religion a little bit.
So I'd say for me, it has been a complicated journey. So growing up in the household where everyone is Christian, but I'd say never been much of a necessarily like going to church household and not too much like I feel like you wouldn't know it unless you ask kind of thing. It's not like a thing that's like obviously seen and like talked about really in the house. So I think especially now as I've gotten older, I've started like thinking to myself, like, let me actually find out about religion on my own. And now I'd say I practice, just trying to like be more thankful and be more mindful of like God and especially like keeping those morals intact. I think that's a big thing that especially religion teaches you is to stick by some of those moral things and just different things. Other than that, I've actually started reading the Bible for the first time. Like instead of just listening to "Oh, the Bible says this or oh the Bible is bad, I've started the journey of actually reading from start to finish. Now, to be clear, I'm not going like super fast because I don't want to burn out. I actually want to finish it from start to finish. So far, made it through all of Genesis and then a good amount of John because it was suggested actually from Phil to go to John after Genesis to read more about Jesus and stuff like that. So yeah, starting on a journey to read the whole thing, starting to go to church some more, and then just figuring out what really Christianity is to me and my own relationship with God.
It's kind of ironic that the logical person is the more devout Christian, and the person that's more on the emotional side is, less into religion. I think that's kind of funny and ironic. But for me, like I said, it's kind of the opposite. I grew up in a very Christian household, especially from my mother. I feel like everything that I get was almost introduced to me from my mom. So from as far as I can remember back, we've always gone to church. My mom's always had lectures and teachings that are inspired from the Bible. And then eventually, when I was around fifth grade, I just started really looking into it myself. Kind of what Jordan's doing now, I was doing back then. So that's when I started reading my Bible cover to cover. Haven't actually finished cover to cover yet, but you know, ironically, I burned out. I've burned out a lot trying to read it cover to cover because there are some pretty boring parts. I won't lie. Like when they start naming all of the lineage and stuff like that, and it says so and so was the son of so and so, who was the son of so and so, and it goes on for multiple pages. That gets a little rough. But back to the topic, yeah, I've always been a Christian. It's something that's really shaped my life. Basically, every aspect of my life is somehow influenced by my religion. So my entire moral code is just copy and pasted from the Bible. I don't trust my own judgment anymore. I just go based off of what the Bible says because that's kind of where my faith is at in Jesus right now. So, yeah. Next, we're going to go into a icebreaker question. So, Jordan, what group of people do you think is the most underrepresented and why?
Oh, now that's a great question. Honestly, when I think of the most underrepresented, I mean, I might be biased, but I would have to say, especially in certain fields, I would have to say black woman, honestly. Like I said, maybe biased there, but it's just like, even when it comes to media, for example, I feel like Vice President Harris was honestly, to me, one of the first times that I've seen a black woman being in that type of not only just role, of course, as vice president, but kind of just like even when you look online, if you look up a picture of business people, you're going to see white woman, you might see an Asian woman, you might see, of course, white men, black men. But a black woman, when you look up a business role, a black woman, if you look up just an engineer or technician, you don't really see that. You don't really hear that. Like when you ask a lot of like, what's your career field or like, what are you doing? You hear a lot of the same thing, nursing, psychology, nothing wrong with those things, of course. But when it comes to just representation over all fields, as well as just like media representation, I have to say black woman personally.
I did not see that coming, I'm not gonna lie, but that is a really interesting point. For me, I kind of thought of the question a little differently. So my answer was prisoners. I say prisoners because number one, people think of prisoners as bad. Like when you think of someone that's in prison, oh, they did something crazy, they murdered someone, so you don't really think about them. And a lot of the times that can be true, but the problem is we get into a habit of just like they did something bad, let's forget about them.
Mm,
You know, they're doing their time, whatever, yada yada yada. But the problem is they don't have anyone really to speak up for them. And obviously, you know, you have lawyers, of course, but what lawyer or what person in general is going to really care about a guy that, you know, killed his family or something like that, you know?
interesting.
So I kind of say that just because, again, when we think of underrepresented, who's representing them? Really nobody. Who's really talking about prisoners' rights and stuff like that? Really nobody. People don't really care because they feel like the punishment fits the crime. But at the same time, I believe that there's got to be at least some basic human rights that need to be met, even for people that commit crimes and stuff like that. So,
Gotcha. So kind of like, yeah, just making sure that they still care for. So do you think like a lot of more effort should be put in like reform, kind of?
oh, absolutely. I think that's the crux of the issue is the reform aspect because a lot of the times when you go to jail, when you get out of jail, it's not just like you're gonna go back to your regular life. For number one, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to find a job. That number one, so that ends up leading you to committing even more crimes, which puts you back in jail. And then it's really a vicious cycle and kind of repeats itself. But yeah, so that's pretty problematic. And then it's like when you look at other prison systems, namely, I believe it was either Norway or Sweden. I got to double check. I'm pretty sure it was Norway. They have a beautiful prison system and their recidivism rates, and recidivism, for anyone that doesn't know, is the likelihood of you reoffending and going back to jail, is extremely low, extremely low. They don't have prison guards. They have social workers that work at the prisons and help the prisoners to reform and be able to get jobs and stuff going out. So they actually learn skills and trades in prison so that when they get out of jail, they don't have to do what they did to get into prison in the first place. And then again, the people in the prisons are social workers, so they're actually trained extensively to be able to connect with the prisoners on a really deep and personal level. So I think that's really great. Obviously, you know, this is kind of a subject that I've researched a lot to care a lot about. So
No, I will
yeah.
say definitely from what I've seen, what you just said, especially there, is very backed up. That especially that piece of like, I think there's a lot of times from what I've seen of undiagnosed things with a lot of like the prison population. Cause sometimes you see somebody do something crazy and you just think like, oh, they're just crazy or they're just a bad person. But I think the fact that you said that Norway, correct?
I believe it was Norway, yeah.
Norway is actually doing and having people there that can help them along and to like better aid them. I think that's an amazing thing. And I do think that here in America, I think that make a great difference. Like being able to have somebody that understands more so why you did it rather than judging you for doing it and just saying, here, go here until essentially we find something to do with you.
Mhm.
Cause like you said, once you get out, it is not, I don't even know if a felon can work at McDonald's, honestly.
I have no idea. I
Yeah,
don't bel if you're good luck.
yeah.
If you have a felony on your record, good luck.
It's like there are some ways to, get it expunged, but it's rough.
Honestly, the only thing off the top of my head that you can do as a felon is run for the president. I think that's the one thing that you off the top of my head, the one thing that I know you can do as a felon
You can win the president because it's the highest position in America.
don't be born out the country. Don't do but if you want a capital murder, oh yeah. You know what I'm saying? Who
Oh,
cares about a couple
yeah.
felonies? But yeah. Yeah. And then another part of the issue, you're probably thinking like, okay, so if this is so proven in Norway, why don't we do it here? The issue, and this is something that I actually wrote a paper on, part of the issue, in my opinion, is privatization. And basically what that means is instead of these prisons being controlled by the government and run by the government, they're controlled by private entities, and it's not really their own fault, but the goal of a private entity is to make money, as much money as possible, lower costs, all that capitalism is great, yada, yada, yada. But the problem is when you're taking that business model and applying it to a prison, you're not really interested in reforming the prisoners. You're trying to fill the cells. So you're not concerned with any programs. You're not concerned with, you know, giving education to the guards on how to treat the prisoners. You're not focused on that. You're focused on housing the prisoners for as cheap as possible to turn a profit. And I think that's something that really needs to be addressed because it's literally creating more criminals. It's like I said, it's a vicious cycle that's feeding into itself. So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed, really needs to be looked at. And that's actually a lot of the work that I want to do when I eventually become a lawyer. I want to really work and help change the prison system. So lofty goal, but I think I have my whole life ahead of me, so I have time.
It's possible. Wow, I actually didn't know that. I didn't know a lot of prisons were private owned places. That's crazy. So
Yeah,
America really, this is really the place of trying to make money off of anything, huh?
that's capitalism. That's
Yeah.
capitalism. If there's someone to buy it, there's someone to make it. And I mean, I guess I'll go further into it. So the reason why privatization happened in the first place is because way back in the day, I don't know if it was the 70s, 80s, 60s, somewhere around there, the the population of prisons just exploded from the war on drugs, stuff
Mhm.
like that. So when you had so many prisoners being like, if you look at a graph, it'll be like this for the amount of people that are in prison. Then once you get to the war on drugs, it goes like this, skyrockets. So obviously, if you have more prisoners, you need more space in prison. However, the government doesn't just have money falling off trees. So there says, how about we have these people build a prison and then we'll outsource the prisoners to them. And then we'll let them worry about costs and all that stuff. So, in terms of it being a business model, it works. But in terms of it being something to actually help people grow, develop, move on, re enter society as, a working individual, it's not. And then, like you said, felonies and, your record playing a part into actually getting a job too is,
I do think people definitely, and even high officials, forget about the reform part. It's really just
oh, yeah.
you did something bad, go to prison.
Yeah. Actually, I was writing a paper, and ironically, this is from Joe Biden himself. He said that, and I quote, "The issue was beyond the pale," which basically means there's nothing we can do. This is the way it is. So,
Wow.
and I actually wrote a paper on it. I have plenty of quotes from plenty of high-ranking politicians that make the decisions, and the view is pretty clear on how they feel about prisoners. So it's a shame, but it's the world we live in. And people like us with our Dissecting the Truth podcast are the ones that need to start the movement to making change to issues like that, which is exactly why we decided to come together. So, yeah. So moving on, we kind of got a little sidetracked there, but that's okay. We want to introduce the podcast. So first, I might have hit on this a little bit, but the reason for doing the podcast, I mean, like I said, we want to talk about issues. We want to bring a Christian perspective to it, and we want to inspire change. We don't want to just live in the status quo. We don't believe in the saying it's beyond the pale. We don't subscribe to that. We believe that no matter how big the issue is, we can change it. But it starts with having conversations about it. And that's the reason that I wanted to start this podcast.
100%. Having that dialogue, having this more information and more perspective on a lot of those different issues, I think is how I mean, once people know, I think that's when people really get involved and start to deciding that they want a change to happen. Sometimes you can't ask for change in what you don't know about. So hopefully having this podcast gives people a chance to reflect more on what the system that they do live in, what we all live in, a lot of us in America, like it's a lot of stuff out there that is not great. It's a lot of stuff out there that does need change. And like Phil is saying, there's a lot of politicians that just put their shoulders up. Heck, there's a lot of politicians that's just worried about money at this point. They're not worried about actually making change anymore. It's sad, but that's the reality, and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought to people's attention.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is I feel like, especially in America today, I feel like everything's just become like a dollars and cents issues. Like it's all about efficiency. It's all about maximizing profit and less about how does this impact people.
Mhm.
And I mean, you look at Amazon, you look at any Fortune 500 company, the way they're getting their money isn't exactly on the up and up, to say the least. And we'll definitely hit on that one day. But
Mhm.
yeah. So, why is our podcast different than others? That's really the question. What's different about us compared to any old civil rights podcast? Well, doesn't feel like this was mentioned, but I'll hit on it again. Just our perspective. I don't care what anyone says. No matter what you do in your life, no matter who you are, where you come from, you have a unique perspective. No one has gone through the same situations in life the same way that you did. No one's thought about things the same way that you have. I feel that everyone has something to bring to a conversation. So, number one, the more people that have this conversation, the better. But two, for us specifically, like we talked about it in the beginning, I feel like from JMC, my logical and critical analysis skills combined with Jordan's psychological background really brings a nuanced conversation to these issues, especially with the backdrop of Christianity.
I also think a big thing in, was briefly touched on earlier is age, honestly. I think that a lot of times when you do see people talk about this, sometimes unfortunately it can be a lot of older crowds. Not saying anything wrong with that, but the problem is it sometimes feels disconnected to the younger crowd. And honestly, a lot of young people do make up of society today. A lot of young people are going to be the ones that truly make a lot of those changes that we're talking about need to be made. So I think hearing it from somebody else that's also younger, still connected to like the young audience, gives it also that uniqueness. There's not a lot of young people talking about issues like this on this grand of a scale, of course, when it relates to and how it connects to religion and just overall as a whole, really. I think that's one of the biggest things for me that I see when I look out into people that do podcasts, people that talk about things like this.
And I think that religion backdrop, I think that's really important because, especially specifically with Christianity, the name of the game with Christianity is love. Like, when you learn about Christianity, it's all about love. Literally, God is love. So when you take a backdrop of love and apply it to civil rights, it produces empathy for others and really gives you an open mind and an open heart to help everybody, whether they agree with your political views, whether they agree with the way you live your life versus how they live your life, it doesn't matter because true Christians love everybody. And I think when you're talking about civil rights, when you're talking about social justice, I think that's really important.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
now, something you might be wondering is how did our name come about? How did we get
Yeah.
DTT or what?
The Dissecting the Truth podcast.
Dissecting the Truth podcast. How did we get that wonderful name?
You see, you notice he forgot right there,
Yeah, well,
actually.
we have probably come up with every name under the sun for this podcast. The original one was Two Leaves in the Wind.
Mhm.
It was originally Two Leaves in the Wind, and then I think we changed it to Across the Divide, and then we came to DTT. But yesterday, was it 2 days ago or yesterday? Was that
That was
yesterday?
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, I spent 10 hours with multiple people trying to figure out a name for this podcast, and it was not easy. It was not easy.
The stuff like Line in the Sand, it
Line in the sand, yep.
it was a lot
It
of
was a
names.
mess. It was a mess. And what's funny is I think I spent around from when I got off work and got home from around 2:30 to 4, somewhere in that range, to around like 1 AM. I was like coming up with art concepts and coming up with names. And the way we got Dissecting the Truth podcast was in the morning. I was watching a video on how to start a podcast, and they gave me the idea of, scouting out the competition to see how we're different. So I'm going through, I'm looking at the titles, and I just thought Dissecting the Truth. Like it just came in my head. I'm like, huh, that's perfect. So after all the hours that I spent last night trying to think of a name, I came up with it in about 10, 15 minutes. Not even, because Dissecting the Truth, that was the first thing that came to my head. So like 30 seconds and I had the name, which is funny. I mean, that's kind of how life works though. You never know when the opportunity is going to come. You just got to go for it when it does. So
Yeah, and we definitely wanted a name that kind of signifies what we wanted to get across in our point. That was where Two Leaves in the Way kind of came through. The idea of like kind of like navigating all like the hardships or just different things that come with life. But I think Dissecting the Truth is also fits very well because, that's what we're doing. We're talking about those things that not everybody is. We're trying to find the truth. We're trying to find those answers. And we're trying to create that dialogue, by dissecting those different things out there. So, yeah, it took a while to get here, but I think DTT is here to stay. I like
hey,
it.
it
It's
is.
a good name. So, yeah.
The name is definitely not changing. The art, I'm really happy about the art. We might change it up a little bit, but if you look at the art with the title, you'll know exactly what the podcast is about, and that's what I really love about it. So, I think all the hours, all the grit, all the grind, I think it was worth it. So, moving on, who is this podcast for, and what should they take away or get from this? Well, for starters, who is the podcast for? It's for everybody. Everybody. White, black, blue, green, red, Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, everybody. There's a role that every single person can play in making the world a better place. And as humans, it's our duty, it's our job to make the world a better place, especially if you're a Christian. If you're a Christian, you have no excuse. If you're a Christian, a devout Christian for years, you should be bringing some sort of beauty, some sort of benefit to making the world a better place. And I really believe that because Christ shared his love with us so that we could share it with the rest of the world. And that's not tearing people down, that's not judging people, that's showing love, compassion, and showing them what it really means to love. Now, as for the takeaway, what you should get out of this, kind of what I just said, honestly. You should take away that you want to make the world a better place. You take away that you want these issues that we talk about to be changed. And whether that's, writing your senator angrily about the prison system or, going out helping to feed the homeless, stuff like that, whatever that is for you, however you can get in to this fight, I think that's what the takeaway is. So,
Yeah, I think for me, it comes down to one of the best quotes I've heard: knowledge is power. It really, truly is. So, if this podcast helps anyone out there have more knowledge about the place that they're living or the things that other people may be experiencing, that's a huge thing. That's one of the hugest and biggest takeaways. Having that knowledge, knowing what's going on, actually understanding it to some degree. This dialogue should hopefully help you get there, should hopefully help you to get that better perspective that you're looking for. And of course, again, everybody, like I know I said the thing earlier about the younger audience, but that's just one single thing. Anybody can listen to our podcast. Anybody can gain information from it. Any color, any race, any age, as long as, of course, hopefully you understand what we're saying. English. Like a baby might not understand our podcast.
well, if anyone wants to watch the podcast, they don't speak English, I will get it translated for you. I will get the transcript, I'll get it translated. I might even do a voiceover. Anyone that wants access to this podcast will have it. And kind of going off of that, I think another takeaway is that there's hope. That these situations, that these civil rights issues that we're going to discuss, they're not hopeless, right? There is a path forward. There is a way out of this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's extremely important takeaway that these issues don't have to be here to stay. If we all talk about these issues, if we all decide that we're not going to put up with it anymore, we can make real change. But it starts with having the conversations, which is why we will be dissecting the truth.
Admittedly, and the term for it in psychology is learned helplessness. A lot of people have that. And sometimes myself, just that thought of learned helplessness, which is just simply saying that you truly believe that there's nothing that you can do to make change. And I think that's something that's unfortunately developed over the years. Because 40 years ago, think 40, 50 years ago, think about how much change has come since then. Like even a lot of people's grandparents, great grandparents, the things that they lived through, the things that they experienced is so much different than it is today. And that only happened from groups of people saying we can and we will make that change. So defeating learned helplessness, that's a big thing. Understanding that you do have a voice, you do have power, but it takes a collective, not just individuals.
Moving forward, we want to kind of discuss what our plan is in terms of our schedule and our topics. So, what the plan is right now is on Wednesdays, what we want to do is we want to really tackle those nitty gritty civil rights issues, but we also want to really explore different topics of the Bible, like really explaining what love is from a Christian perspective, learning what forgiveness is from a Christian perspective. And that's for two reasons. One, for believers, so that they know really kind of what they should be doing so that they can have a better understanding of their religion. And for unbelievers, so that they can hold other Christians accountable. That's right. Because as Christians, we have a duty to the world. We have a duty to bringing peace, love, and joy to the world. And all Christians should be doing that if they're really Christians. And I really do believe that. So that's why I really want to tackle these civil rights issues, but I also really want to tackle the truth that's in the Bible. So when I say dissecting the truth, that means multiple things. It means
Mm.
multiple things. So yeah, organizationally, I think what we're gonna do, we're probably gonna try to do 2 a week at least, over summer break when we're not as busy. Obviously that could change, but as of right now, that's the plan. Wednesday and Sunday. Wednesday and Sunday.
And then in terms of topics, we do have a couple of like pre-topic ideas, but at a certain point, we'd love for you all to give us topics, any questions that may arise from what we're talking about, because nothing necessarily in this podcast is off limits. We really do want to have an open dialogue. We really do want to have a diverse dialogue about the things that are going on. So, like I said, we have a list to start off, different things as from relates to life as a student, as it relates to religion, as it relates to culture, different things like that. But of course, if you have anything, drop a comment. We'll definitely be looking at them and we'll definitely be keeping them in mind to talk about for future podcasts.
Mm. And feel free to challenge us too. If we say something and you don't agree with it, feel free to disagree because all that does is gives more dialogue on the issue,
100%.
which is beautiful.
If you
Yeah,
have a different perspective, it's fueled by some type of knowledge, it's fueled by something, and that's very, very valuable.
it is.
1,000%.
It is. And of course, I don't want to be on here saying stuff that's wrong. I don't want to be, so if I say something like, for instance, if Norway is not the right place, feel free. I'm going to double check it myself, but feel free to hop in the comments and say, yeah, buddy, you're tripping. It is not Norway. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And then, of course, if we, as we get a more diverse audience, if you're actually from any of the places that we discuss, please let us know how it is. Please let us know how it's different from what we may talk about in our American experience. We'd love that. We'd love the chance to actually compare and contrast, not only just from the internet or sources, but actual people living day to day lives.
Mhm. And if you're one of the people that fits the issues that we're talking about, for example, he was talking about black women. If you're a black woman, feel free to tell us your experience. Feel free to let us know if what we're saying is right on or if it doesn't exactly fit your situation. So, because at the end of the day, we're students. We want to learn. So, all the different perspectives, we want to have the opportunity to know them and understand them so that we really know how to go out in the world and tackle these issues.
Everything and everyone is accepted and expected, honestly. We expect you to have opinions. We expect you to want to say something, especially if it relates to yourself in any way or someone that you know closely.
Mhm.
100%.
So, shifting gears a little bit, we're going to start talking about not just our lives, but the life of a student in general. So, starting off, Jordan, why did you choose to go to college?
If I'm being completely honest, it wasn't a choice for me, if I'm being honest. Now, there's a little of a deeper meaning to it, I guess, in terms of my parents' perspective. From their perspective, without sharing too much about their lives, it was like school is the path to a better life. Like, of course, there are plenty of people that get a degree, and school is not for everybody, but in my parents' mind, that was the highest likelihood that I would have a good and successful life, which, I mean, honestly, is not completely not the truth. Of course, you can make a living off of anything, literally anything. But a lot of times when you do get a college degree, it puts you with the best chance to make a good living. And I feel like that's what it was for them. So yeah, for me, it was always like I was always going to college. Like I never once thought about stopping and working. And honestly, I don't regret it at all, of course. I feel like I've gotten the chance to meet a lot of great people, learn a lot of new things, and then eventually give back, not only through this podcast, but then also when I am a therapist, when I do possibly have my own private practice, I want to be a professor. So I think college has opened a lot of doors. But yeah, I didn't really have a choice. I was always going to college. I was always going to get the education. I was always going to find a way through. And that was it.
To answer the question, I didn't. I did not choose to go to college. In fact, I don't even going to college was like going to high school or middle school. I mean, that was just the next step. And for me, it didn't make sense because, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, but, my parents always drilled it in my head that, you go to school, you get an education, you get a job. That's the way it's done.
Mhm.
So so that's what I did. I didn't if I could go back, obviously, I wouldn't change it, but kinda like what he was saying, college isn't necessarily for everyone, and that's something that you learn after you go through college. But, you know, I am glad that I went. I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that I was pushed in that direction, but yeah, that's why I chose to go to college.
I think the end all goal of any experience or any education or at all period is just to be successful in some type of way. You don't have to be the richest person in the world, you don't have to be a billionaire, but just be successful, live a good life and hopefully be able to take care of your family if you decide to have one or anything like that. And I think that's what college was all about for my parents and why ultimately they were like, you're going to college.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moving on, overall, how was your college experience? What went well? What went bad? Whew,
Oh boy. Yeah,
we're gonna be
that's
here for a minute.
Oh boy, that's a topic right there. I was a traditional college student, just meaning, well, honestly, I don't even know if I could say traditional, but I did 4 years of college and then left. Overall, how was it? I mean, if I could do it again, assuming I still had all the answers to the exams and papers written, I probably would do it again. Like it was a good experience. I mean, I met some great people from my college. I said learned a lot of different things. What went well? Ooh, education went well. The education went well. I was able to maintain a great GPA throughout all of college. I was
Must be
able
nice.
to do sports throughout all of college. That was a big thing. That was very doing
Must be
track and
nice.
field, being a thrower.
Must be nice.
That was fun. That went well. What went bad, honestly? College is stressful. Like it is very hard. Luckily for me, I've always been more of a night person, but any person that's been through college, you're like you've stayed up very late doing something, rather it's studying, rather it's a project, rather it's an exam. You've sacrificed your social life doing something. All your friends may be out, maybe they go to a party, maybe they're just hanging out in general, maybe they're just talking. And you have to say, no, I can't do that. I have to do my project. I have to study for this exam. So that's what kind of went bad. Yeah, other than just like, some interpersonal relationships kind of stuff it's stressful. College is not at all easy. It's not at all an easy journey, but I made it through somehow. So, well, still not completely done, but I'm done with undergrad. Got the bachelor. So, what about you, Phil?
Whew, to answer the question again, it went very, very poorly. But thank God it went.
Mm.
We did make it through. We did get the bachelor's degree. But my college experience, I mean, man, where do I start? My first year in college was not good. Not good at all. I really didn't go to college my first year, to be honest with you. I went to my dorm. I went to the basketball court. I went to the food court. And then I went home and played Dead by Daylight until I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. That's what I did for my entire first year. So obviously,
That PlayStation.
yeah, that didn't go too well. But for me, it wasn't just about like not getting my work done. I would say honestly, looking back at it, and if you really just go and look at my transcript, it'll back it up. I was really dealing with stuff from my past, especially specifically the passing of my dad. I didn't really process it the way I should have, and that was in 2018, and I went to college in 2021. In between those 2 were COVID. So I feel like just adapting to college really took me a minute, and then I don't think I ever really fully adapted. So it was really a struggle for me in terms of staying focused, and then it was like I got into a cycle of, when things go bad, I almost like give up. I almost, drop the ball, didn't try as hard. And then I would go forward in the next semester and try to do too much, try to make up for what I lost from before. And that would lead me to burning out, giving up again, and then, repeating. So if you go and look at my transcript, fall is terrible. Spring, Dean's List. Fall, terrible. Spring, Dean's List. I think that happened like 3 times in a row. So for the grade side, that was my experience. Moving past the grades in terms of like my social life, I mean, it lived and died on the basketball courts. To be quite honest with you, I didn't really have much of a social life. I wasn't really the type of person to go to parties. I think I went to the bar at Michigan. I went to Michigan State. Obviously, you can't tell from the green and white. Go green. But
And I like Michigan State too. I just can't believe you said that. Sound like a Cass Tech person.
whoa, never that. Never that. I don't want to.
We're both from Detroit Renaissance,
Yes, we went
so
to
we
Renaissance
don't really mess with Cass.
at
Number
all.
2, never forget
Beat him every year in track. But yeah, I didn't really go to I think I went to, I don't even remember the name of the bar. Whatever the main bar at Michigan State was, I went to it once. I don't the only party that I ever tried to go to got closed down on my way, so I just got some ice cream, went back to my dorm, chilled out. I mean, I worked a little bit. I mean, I didn't really have much of a college experience, to be honest with you. I just, put my head down, did what I felt like doing for the most part, and that was that. So
Now, to just be on a little bit of a positive note, what went well for you in
oh.
college? I mean, I do understand, being friends with you for a while. Hey, trust me, I remember them college stories. What would you say went well for your college
I
story?
first of all, I apologize for being a negative Nancy. Despite
That's
that,
real. That's what we like. We like real here.
yeah,
That's what this is for. We like
yeah.
real.
Despite, that thunderstorm of stuff that I just, spilled on you, a lot did go well. A lot did go well. I'd say the number one thing is my education. Despite my grades, especially when it came to JMC, almost all the classes I really got something out of. Like, my writing skills are superb. My critical thinking is through the roof, and I feel like I can really thank JMC for it. And then also really getting a different perspective when it comes to stuff. Like, there's this one class, ironically, I failed this class twice in a row, but it was MC 386, Woman in Power in a Transitional Perspective, I believe was the name. And as a Christian, we really essentially believe in, the gender binary, men and women. But I feel like just getting that different perspective, actually learning a different perspective when it comes to that, I think was really important for me just to help me understand where people are coming from when it comes to LGBTQ plus and all that. And then moving beyond that side, understanding how the patriarchy works and how it, impacts people's lives. Like, if you don't know, we do live in a patriarchal system. So essentially, that means led by men. This is a lot of people might disagree with it, but it's just the way it is. It is a man's world controlled by men, and understanding how that impacts households and other things, I feel like was really important for me. And the fact that I have that knowledge, but my transcript says that I got zero knowledge from the class is upsetting, but no, that's the way it is. Additionally, I think it kind of forced me to process my grief a little bit when it comes to my dad because, you know, it really kept sending me into a place that I didn't want to be in. So being in college forced me to adapt, to learn, to understand my feelings, and to really process that. And even though that was painful, I think it was really important for me to do that. Additionally, I think just having a more strict system, a more strict schedule, I think that was really important for me because I'm the type of person, I don't want to have any sort of structure to my schedule. I want to wake up, chill. If something needs to be done, get it done eventually. That's the type of person I am. So having a more rigid schedule from college, I think, was really important. Helps me with discipline. Mm, yeah. In terms of making friends, though, I don't really make any friends in college. My good friend Brandon Cole, I met him, but he lives down the street, so I don't know if that. I met him at Michigan State, but I don't know if that really counts.
I'd say Brandon counts.
Yeah.
I feel like y'all probably got. I feel like I got closer definitely because y'all went to the same college. I think if y'all just like worked together, I don't think y'all be as close as you were.
I don't know. It's kind of complicated because I met him playing basketball, and then I was hurt from 2022 onward, so I didn't really see him much. We really didn't become close until we happened to work at the Hawk together.
Mm,
So it's pretty interesting. My friend Gabriel, I actually met him at Michigan State. I would not know him if it wasn't for Michigan State. That's a really good friend of mine that I met at Michigan State. And then Trey Black. I met him at Michigan State, but I really met him through my friends that went to Michigan State.
mhm.
So I know it's kind of complicated, but yeah, there were a good experience. Working at I Am Circle. Listen, she's not really the manager there anymore, but Angela Michael, top 2 managers that I've ever had. That is a wonderful woman. I could go on and sing her praises until the sun comes up.
Mm,
And, if we keep going on, the sun will come up.
mhm,
But I feel like working there, having a boss that really, really cares about you and
mm,
not just your position, I think that was great. I really think that helps me to have a newfound respect for authority
mm.
and, yeah, just having an amazing manager. And, there's a lot of wonderful people that I met at Michigan State. So, yeah, really the people, especially even JMC. A lot of wonderful people are at JMC, especially we'll get into, professor and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say the people, best part of the experience for me, meeting people. So I know that was a bit of a rant all over the place, but
Hey, I mean,
yeah.
I think that's real, honestly, because classes almost always aren't the most fun parts. It's good to learn, but I think the people that you meet along the way, and heck, we all know professors make classes. A class can be the best class or the worst class you ever had simply based off of how someone teaches it. So people definitely matter a lot, 100%.
All right. I think that's a great stopping point for this episode. I'm your host, Philip.
And I'm your co-host, Jordan.
Thank you for watching DTT or Dissecting the Truth podcast.
And we